Welcome to Fortify 365 webinar series, session 3, where we are going to be going into the Microsoft Defender portal and just talking about all the things of that nature. So glad you've joined us. There are going to be some recaps from session 1, I believe, when we're going to talk about DNS and DKIM and things of that nature. So for newer tenants and those who watched session 1, if not, go over to the YouTube channel and definitely check that out. There's another spot to do that, but today we're going to be primarily focusing in the security center for Microsoft around Defender. You know, who am I? My name is Eric Taylor. I'm the founder and chief forensic operator here at Barricade Cyber Solutions. Pleasure to meet you. And our business really is to help make businesses more safer and secure tomorrow than they are today through our ransomware recovery efforts and things like this, where you're able to implement things inside of your environment to make things better for you. So again, session 3, Defender for Microsoft Office. We are going to be talking about the baseline policies for your anti-spam, your anti-malware, your anti-phishing. This will include safe link and safe attachments. Like I mentioned a moment ago, SPF, DKIM, and DMARC, we did cover a lot of that for new tenant creations in section 1. But for those who are been in the Microsoft 365 portal for some time, that option may not be available to you. So we're definitely going to make sure we're going to cover it in the original spot for the Security Center. We're going to talk about a little bit about mail flow rules and encryption and setting up your alerts and reporting. So that's the biggest thing that we see a lot of things that are going on. And of course, we will wrap it up with an AMA of Ask Me Anything that may be on your mind about what we are doing. Right. So let's get started. Standards. The standard preset policies in your Microsoft tenant. With that, we are going to jump right into the anti-malware section of this. And as before, I'm always posting the direct links, so that way you can go right to the URL in question. Here's a default. Your organization may have more, depending on how long it's been inception and how things have been going, right? So let's just get into our default policies. Let's edit the configuration settings. Where you are right now, enable 0-hour auto purge for malware. Now, the malware zap is a very old term. Microsoft has had this around for quite a number of years. Even memory serves me back, even back into the Windows XP days, where Zap was part of their original malware detection engine. And so this thing, it really is designed to leverage the insights and the TTPs from inside of the Microsoft ecosystem for, instead of 0-day exploits that you'll see against your FortiGate or what's currently being exploited right now in the wild at the time of this recording, the Sonic Wall, possible SSL VPN that's going around. This is that same concept. So Microsoft is going to scan those files and zap them or quarantine them, take them out of there, and to help protect your organization. We have seen a lot of times that 0-hour auto purge is not enabled for older tenants. So definitely make sure you check on that. The enable common file attachment filter. Okay. This one does get a little funky, right? So this is what will be quarantined inside of your environment. All right, so definitely take a look at this. There's definitely bad things, like you don't want someone receiving a bat file, right? That's an executable. Definitely don't want to be sending possibly malicious cab files or .cmd, .com. The list goes on and on. I believe there was 43 of these. Yep, there's roughly about just under 50 with the ones that are here, plus the other 43 file types. A lot of the ones that you'll see that are very common with malware are your .hta files, your image files, ISO files, things of that nature. When we see organizations will remove this, and then they are, getting hit with those ISO file payloads, things of that nature. So definitely make sure that is available and enabled in your tenant. And do you want to reject the message altogether? Do you want to quarantine that message? My recommendation and what we do inside of Fortify or our offering is we reject it, like flat out, get rid of it. You don't want that garbage in your tenant. You don't even want some jackwagon in your organization doing an investigation with a lot of these files and doing that. So unless you have an internal threat hunting team that will be able to safely parse through those files, I personally say reject it, right? Um, Other things of consideration, do you want the admins to be notified when these types of things happen? Yes, actually, you want to, right? That makes sense. Notify an admin about the undelivered message from internal senders. So this is around if your internal sender, we make this reference, Kimberly was here, if she went to the list above up here and was to send out that email to external party, yes, we want, you want that admin to be notified, right? And do you really want to be notified when the external people are sending to internal, right? My personal recommendation, if you have the internal bandwidth to do that, yeah, absolutely. Put that admin email address in there and get that notification. If you really want to get advanced, you can use custom. You can modify the custom text that are in here. Depending on the size of your organization, you may want to strongly consider this for email processing rules, things of that nature, right? A lot of our clients will use a pushover application or PagerDuty or something to that nature. So being able to customize these messages so that way you're knowing, okay, is this an alert from our EDR tool? Is this an alert from Microsoft? Whatever the case is, to help you mentally quickly diagnose what exactly you're being alerted on. It is very, very useful in your workflow process. So definitely consider doing that. And like I said, just make sure that those things are enabled. In this use case, we're not going to enable or really modify anything on our test tenant at this time. No, once you go through the anti-malware, aka version 2 of everything, we definitely want to switch over and do anti-spam. Spam is the biggest thing that a lot of people are suffering from, right? Like, how do we freaking get rid of all this trash, right? So there are 3 policies that are come in by default on newer tenants. At the time of this recording, I'm pretty sure that this has actually been rolled out globally, whether you're new or not. We have seen where there have been some tenants that have not had this created. They've been around for a long time. I would say, 3 to 5 years or older. But definitely go through these and see if these match what you want to have done. So we'll come in here. So I clicked on the wrong one. All right. So what do you want to have marked as spam, right? Empty messages? Yeah, we definitely want that marked as spam, right? Nobody's going to send you an empty message unless it's just complete error. But a lot of times we see in the forensics where someone will send an empty message, but it'll have just an attachment. So that, this is just pure empty message. Yeah, just mark it as spam and go away, right? Are there embedded tags in the HTML? So like a lot of email, especially in Outlook, you get those newsletters and everything like that. And those are embedded HTML. It displays as a web page. And a lot of times either at the top or the bottom, you can see, open this up in your browser and it looks like what you see in your email. It's because it's an HTML. It's a website running inside of your browser. If there's embedded HTMLs, do you want to classify that as spam? I personally say yes. And we'll kind of go through in the bottom of here where you would potentially set up some exclusions in that. If there's JavaScript or VB scripts in the HTML, absolutely, you definitely want to do this. Pretty much everything in here, you're going to want to say yes. So, and this is to just keep your users safe. We don't want them being able to potentially click on anything that may end up being malicious, right? And we're just going to mark this stuff as spam. Sensitive words. Microsoft will, this one I say turn off depending on your organization. So there's a list that Microsoft contains, and it shows it right here, that contains a dynamic but non-editable list of words that are associated with potentially offensive messages. The reason I tell clients just to leave this off is we don't know what that list is, right? We don't know, and nor can we edit it. So, like, let's just say hypothetically, you're running a medical manufacturing company, and there may be some terms that Microsoft is deeming as inappropriate or a sensitive word, and it'll flag your inbound email from a vendor as spam. So again, consider that. There is that test option for the sensitive words. You can always do that, and it'll put that little header at the top of it, like this email contains sensitive words, things of that nature. So so your mileage may vary, but we personally recommend just leave that off. I have not seen a successful use of the sensitive words in our engagements. So, but your mileage may vary. SPF records, hard fail. Yes. We will talk about this a little bit in the DKIM and DMARC sections of it, but this is just another spot, right? If for some reason it get past DKIM and SPF or DKIM and DMARC emails, then you may want to just have this one as a safe harbor, right? So if it hard fails, yep, it's spam. We don't want people who can't set up proper email in the right way to email our users. Sender ID filtering, hard fail. So this one is, so the message failed a combination of SPF and sender ID check. So that is a little harder to go in. I'll try not to go too technical in the weeds on this one, but if SPF has failed, we're already sending it to spam, or we're already flagging it for spam. And if the sender ID, aka like someone's impersonating Kimberly can fix it .com, and that sender ID doesn't match what the domain is, then you're going to send that in there. But you're already doing that for the hard fail of the SPF record. You can definitely turn this on and go forward and be happy, but that's your mileage may vary. Just consider it. If I remember, yep. So you can. That's what I thought. This has not changed the last time. All right. So if you want to filter anything that contains specific languages, it's like, okay, everybody who corresponds with us is English only, right? So I'm like, okay, we really just don't want anybody who's French. Again, nothing against French people or the Chinese, or let's just say Russians, right? Like if their text has any of that language, just mark it as spam, right? I really wish this was reverted. I've asked Microsoft several times why they set it up this way, and being able to change that. So they haven't, but whatever. But I really wish like if it's not English, then just mark it as spam, because otherwise you're gonna have a really long, language list there that will definitely uh, cause some issues. So we're going to kind of skip over the connection policy filter for 1 minute. This one literally is for your outbound rules. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're talking about inbound, now we're going to talk about outbound, and we'll go through the connection filter process. This really, really is a really simple. So this is all, if you've been in IT for a while and you know about bulk emails going outside of your local Exchange server or maybe your Gmail system, things of that nature, you right now zero is unlimited, right? So open the floodgates, everybody can do what they want to do. The external send limit, let's just say we don't want our internal users to send an email to more than 50 people or 25 or 30. I personally find 50 is acceptable, especially when you have a lot of communication with a lot of external people. Sometimes those email chains do get pretty heavy. And I've found very, very good, very few use cases where you really need more than 50 email device or email addresses going out on an outbound. Most cases, you really don't need more than 20. Some have been about 25, but at least say 50. It helps prevent your inbox becoming a outbound spam bot. Same for your internal organization. So let's say Kimberly was going to email out to all the people of the Fortify community and say, hey, check out this new email or this new benefit from HR. And, if you're a small organization, you don't really need to set this. But if you're a larger organization, let's just say more than 1,000 users, then you really should have distribution groups set up for internal processes. So we typically say no more than 5 people, maybe 10 on your internal process, right? So setting up internal distribution groups, things of that nature for like HR or accounting or production, whatever have you, and being able to email that, and then that filters out to so many more people, right? If you want to make sure that your internal users are not sending out more than X amount of emails a day. Now I know a lot of people in business like, no, we want them sending out all the emails, especially the sales department. But yeah, just your mileage may vary, all right? So just consider those as things that you may want to impose inside of your organization. Definitely send a copy of your suspicious outbound messages or messages that exceed these emails to these users and groups. Again, we're going back to groups again, distribution groups, I said, right? So, you definitely want to make sure your admin is aware of things of that nature. And then also the same thing, notify these users and groups of a sender, or if a sender is blocked to sending outbound spam. So Microsoft will typically block outbound emails if it discerns as a spam, like a massive spam bot attempt. Like Kimberly was going to send out 100 people. Like, okay, her email account got compromised, and she has 500 people in her contacts, and that person is going to send out a malicious Dropbox link to all 500 of those contacts. Microsoft typically sees that and says, whoa, 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 this is a problem, block it. And then you can set up the notification rule for that to be notified. Connection filter policy. So some organizations have legacy tech inside of their organization. Some people call it tech debt, where your old all-in-one printer, scanner, copier, and fax machine, sitting over there in one of the office cubicles. You want to be able to send to your, you want to email all, you scan a page for a project and it goes to the project onboarding distribution group. And this is really where you set that stuff up. So you're setting up the exclusion because your Carousel printer or all-in-one is sending emails to the distribution. It's a known, trusted source inside of your organization. So definitely setting that up and allowing that to go through is really where this screen is primarily for. So, and other technology as well. So we know there's some Epson desk scanners that sit there that have the capability to connect to email. So save attachments. Let's talk about this for a second. As you've seen before in the last section, where we are going through and automatically marking BAT files, HTA files, just a whole slew of roughly 50 sort of attachments. This bolts on top of that. This might be a change. It is a change. Save attachments has definitely expanded, and it was over in a different portal. It was not in Defender, but it is here now. So, okay, we'll dive into it. Not a problem. All right. So Microsoft has the ability not only to scan your attachments coming in by email, but it's also doing this in your SharePoint, your OneDrive, your Teams, things of that nature. So why does this matter? If, poor Kimberly was here, I keep picking on her, but, let's just say hypothetically, she got an email to go view a Google Doc, right? Perfectly, she was expecting the email and she downloaded it and is wanting to share it with her team and say, hey, look at this great PDF with a bunch of information that is relevant to this topic. Microsoft has extended its safe attachments into those additional Microsoft products. Again, like I said before, it used to be in a completely different portal, and I'll have to modify our upcoming sessions to reflect that. But right now it is being brought in. See if this actually applies to your specific tenant. But this one, do we definitely want to turn on, right? So in this one, protect your files in SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. And those who've been around for a while definitely know Microsoft Teams is the GUI front end for SharePoint. But I guess they just don't want to confuse some people. So definitely turn on the Defender for Office. Help people stay safe while trusting a file to open outside of protected view. So this is where you've probably seen this a lot of times, where you will download a Excel file, Word document, and it will open in what is called protected view, and you have to click on that button that says enable editing and being able to open it up. So this is where we are saying, yep, we want to enforce that. So a lot of times people will put this together in the olden days and back in GPOs, your local Active Directory, to enforce that. And now we're making it a standard. So whether the device that the end user is using, even a BYOD, bring your own device inside the organization, you're one to force it. Like, yep, nope, we always want protected view, because most of the time our users are just reviewing the document. They're not really doing a lot of editing or anything like that. Just let them view it and put it in that air bubble, the air gap, if you will, and they can view it without launching any malicious code. Those who've been around, those who not have been around in the IT sector for a long time, for many, many years, back in the 1990s, early 2000s, and probably even as late as 2010, a little bit after that, there was always malicious code that may be embedded in your Microsoft Excel files called JavaScripts or VBS scripts, and it would launch that code when you execute or once you launch. So Protected View really came out to help really protect against that, even though most users would just click through it and be done anyway. But anytime you can give the end user a moment of pause, just especially when they're looking at something versus having to actually launch it. This right here allow people to click through Protected View even if Safe Document identified the file as malicious. Now, this is something to really, really, really think hard about, right? Because there's no exclusions. Yep. Okay. They hadn't changed that. I want to make sure. There's no, as of right now, at the time of this recording, there's no exclusions for this, right? So if Microsoft's nope, or says nope, this is malicious, you're not able to do anything about it. Nothing. You're not going to say, oh, my security team is excluded from this because Kim is going to send it over to security and they are going to review it. Well, guess what? They're not going to be able to because this is being enforced, right? So definitely think about this one. If you have a external security team, barricade, sorry, just kidding. But if you had an external team, they have API calls that they can make to pull that message out and do a forensic analysis on that specific file. So you're able to, get around it, so to speak, in a more secure fashion. But if everybody's internal, they're not going to be able to really do that a whole lot. So consider that and make sure, just talk to your security team if you have one. If not, get one and make sure that they're able to pull that stuff out via the Graph API. And that's literally what it is, the Graph API. And sorry, I did forget to put this link into chat. So I just did that now. Talking about safe attachments, we will go to safe links, which is right down here. And it's just easier for me to do that. High level view, safe links is literally a in-between. It is kind of a man in the middle to some degree, where you are sent an email, and you may have even seen this because safe links has been around for a little while now, where you're going to go in your email, you're going to go in your email, and you're going to, and of course this is going to be problematic, aren't you? This really should be already turned on, but it's not. Okay, we'll talk about this in a moment. Sorry, I'm going full ADHD mode on everybody. So this safe links is literally that man in the middle, where you click on a link and it's going to take you to, let's just say, a YouTube channel, right? And when you click on that, it goes through the Microsoft Defender ATP relays and quickly scans it for possible known malicious links. Like, is that YouTube link potentially malicious? No, I don't know if any YouTube link that is malicious per se, but you get the idea. Has that Dropbox or Google Drive link been shared around to be flagged as potentially malicious? And that's when you'll start getting that red box notification that, hey, this is malicious. Do not open it. Stop. Do not go forward. Do not collect $200 type of thing. With that said, we are going to come in here and we're just going to add our standard protections. We're going to say add. So let's talk about this. So this one, I probably need to update my doc, to be completely honest with you, because most tenants have this already, but sometimes it doesn't. And I believe this is what's causing the issue with safe links. And all this stuff is built on this other screen. So we'll do that. Yeah, because security defaults. Microsoft loves promoting security defaults. And if you're new into Microsoft 365, at least applying a security default until you get into the conditional access side of things is really, really good. I didn't think they did this particular setup with the E5, new E5 tenants, but here I sit corrected because I'm sitting and not standing. Anyway, management by default, you have built-in protections. We were kind of showing that where it was already built in for your safe links, or for your attachments, for all that stuff. That's really what it's all in there for, right? So we're going to go further and say we want some standard protections, right? So before you can even click this on, I'm not sure you can hear it. I'm clicking like a jackrabbit and it's not doing anything, right? So we're going to go here and manage our protection settings. So, right now I can tell you we do this for all recipients, right? Don't exclude anybody or whatever. If you have a larger organization that does require change control, wonderful, go live with Microsoft problems. Let's see if we can get past this real quick. All right, all recipients. Click next. If your organization has change control, then definitely, do the, either the users or the groups. If you have multiple domains inside of your 365 tenancy, definitely do that if you can, if you have to get real granular, things of that nature. Defender for Office 365 protections. Yes, all recipients, we want everybody to be protected by the 365 for their protections. Again, like I was stating just a little bit ago that we showed, your OneDrive, your SharePoint, and your Teams. Teams is the GUI for SharePoint. Quite well, actually. I like it because you can't make phone calls in SharePoint. But anyway, I digress. Impersonation protection. It's going to, can I imitate people inside the organization, right? Add an email address to flag when impersonated by attackers. So yeah, we're going to automatically, I'm going to add myself. All right. And, we're going to add Kimberly as well, right? Because Kimberly was here and we need to protect Kimberly while she's here. That's going to be a joke that's going to stick in my head for years. So I can feel it already. All right, add domains to flag when impersonated by attackers. Pop quiz, what domain do you think we're going to add? We're going to add ours, right? So Fortify 365. We're protecting our domain. Now, we've had clients ask, what about, Bob Sprockets, right? Can we flag it if they're being impersonated? Well, that goes into the DKIM, DMARC, and SPF, or not SPF, but your DKIM and DMARC settings that we'll talk about in a little bit later. You can't control external impersonation. You can only control or flag on internal. Let's just say hypothetical. I mean, everybody's here. Pretty much knows I'm the owner here at Barricade, but if someone was impersonating me to Kimberly or any of the other team members and says, hey, the infamous, we need 30 gift cards. I'm in a meeting right now. Go down to the store and grab them real quick for $20 each. This helps prevent that type of scenario, right? And this one always rubs me the wrong way. Again, you can do what you want to do, but added trusted emails and domains to not set flag as impersonation. I have not found a good reason at all to exclude any domain out there. This is both internal and external of something like that. We had seen in the early days where, and really prevalent when you see it in Google, when Google's or when tenants in Google where Bob is sending on behalf of Janet, right? And that is a send as, but it is a form of impersonation, but it's being identified in the send as right there in the head. And a lot of people our organizations were flagging that as impersonation. Within the last year or so, we haven't really seen that as being a problem. So, your mileage may vary. Privacy mode, select it if you want this privacy mode on or off. Of course, we want this on. Unless you're doing proof of concept, things of that nature, you want to print out that screenshot to submit it for change management and being able to get that approval before going forward, then yes, just do the leave it off. Let me know after this if you really want us to go uber down a rabbit hole and go into strict protections. It's a little bit outside of the scope of some of this stuff, but we'll definitely talk about that if you guys and gals are interested in that. And as you see, now it is on that we've completed that. Quarantining process. Yippee! Something that Microsoft sends out at absolutely no random time or at any random time of the day to let you know about your quarantined items. So this is one of the things another one of the things I really, really just don't like about Microsoft's quarantine policy, because, one day you can get your email about Microsoft quarantine at 10, next day it's at 4, next day it's at 2:15. It's all over the place. But definitely there's a lot to go through this thing, and it really is based off of what you want to do. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. The default full access policy, release the message from quarantine, or this actually, if you've seen them before, and unfortunately I can't show you one without disclosing too much information, because a lot of our stuff is getting flagged by quarantine today at the time of this recording. But you'll see that email, the subject line, a little blurb, and you can say trust sender, reject, things of that nature. So that's where it's getting all these type of things, right? So you can actually go in here and create a custom policy and be able to, modify this thing to your will and be able to make it do what you want to do. But definitely take a look at the quarantine policy to see what changes you may want to make, if at all. Again, most of the time, we just don't see a whole lot of that, right? So, all right. A lot of times in ransomware cases, especially, we go through DNS checkers, and for Fortify 365, for our BECs, business email compromise, we definitely look at these guys, the ransomchecker.org. There's also a .report. Okay, so put both of these links into chat real quick, and I'll kind of showcase them showcase them a little bit. So the reason for this, we want to go through and say, what are the lookalike domains for our organization? And for the Fortify 365, we're just going to enter that in there, fortify365.com. And we'll come over here to DNS Twist as well. And it's going through and scanning. So we'll go back here and look at this. All right. So it already sees the Fortify 365. It looks at DNS checker, blah, 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 blah. Now, the one thing this does not do is look at your lookalike domains. So yeah, I want you to go ahead with me a little bit. As you see here, we have a lookalike 365. We do have an upcoming class, and just because we're talking about DNS is why I wanted to bring this up. we do have a class coming up or a session coming up where it is, well, we do talk about blocking domains from lookalikes and the transport rules and things of that nature. So, in this particular one, we may want to block the fortify-365.com. We definitely want to block fortify365.xyz, the .com, and all these other variations, right? Because a lot of times when you're going through emails and you start seeing this, that little dot may elude some folks. And while there is no MX record for it right now, it does look like it has an IP address that is tied to that particular domain name. Yep. That is based, what did it say, Russia? Yeah, or China. So, we don't want we just don't want these guys to coming out after us, right? So definitely start looking at that. We will be covering that in a later session. Okay. So now, I have problems over here with this Excel sheet. All right, so we talked about this in the first module, and we'll just kind of recap this for one quick second. We come in here to our setup. We come to our Fortify365.com, our DNS records. Remember that we talked about it being in Cloudflare. Microsoft already populated all that stuff. It's already setting up our DKIM records, things of that nature. So, and even on here, we even should see those records as well. If no C names are on here, we got our MX, we got our name server being Cloudflare. Okay, it's not showing that. Okay, interesting. All right, so we're going to work on that today. All right, so when you go through this, and I'm not going to do this now, if you have, let me know in the comments, because again, we did this in step 1, and that went through the whole process of setting this up. If you need a manual explanation of this one, let me know in the comments, and we'll definitely do an ad hoc one. But because we did this in step 1, this is already set up. We've already got our host names. We've already got our values that are already set, things of that nature, and we're able to go there. It is becoming recommended best practices to rotate your DKIM keys at least once a year. Some people are even getting overzealous about saying, okay, let's refresh them twice a year, every 6 months. I don't know what value that is going to do for you, but there's a lot of people that are saying to do that. So definitely do some research and see if rotating your DKIM keys are valid or a good thing to do every so often, and kind of go from there. So that was DKIM. DMARC requires DKIM to be set up. And to set up DMARC to validate the from address, this builds out a trust relationship for you. So a lot of times this helps prevent the people impersonating you with external vendors. So let's just say hypothetically you are sending from the Fortify365.com email address, and you're sending to Joe's Pizza Shack, and you want to Joe's Pizza Shack is like, we want to verify who this is. That DKIM registration will help you. Now, you need to make sure you have SPF records set up, which I do not believe I have on this one yet. I do not. Nope. And you need to have DMARC or DKIM set up, which is those DKIM keys that you could be able to potentially rotate. And you're able to do that, and then you're able to get DMARC set up, which is like, we're taking both of these, we're putting together, and now you have a sandwich, so to speak. You're taking your peanut butter, you're taking your jelly, both of those set up, boom, we have sandwich, right? So definitely go through. It's a little bit more in depth than really what this level 1 pass is for. And so, but it definitely revolves around, setting up text records in your DNS server, things of that nature. And again, we use Cloudflare. You're going to say, what your policy is are you going to quarantine it? Are you going to reject it? Personally, I say reject the darn thing. If you have Cloudflare, you can actually set this up to where Cloudflare is going to ingest all your DKIM items that come back over, or your DKIM items, and run analysis on this stuff. So if you set it to your own email address every morning, you're going to get a bunch of emails from all the different third-party tools that you use, or emails that you use, and they send to you. So you'll get a bunch of Googles and Rackspaces and this and that and all that. Unless you have an internal security team, I highly, highly recommend, please don't do that, right? So there's a lot of stuff in here, but I put the link in chat. This definitely requires you to go through and do some due diligence and kind of get that taken care of, right? So, and it even kind of walks you through some of the stuff, right? So you are armed with information. With that said, we are going to press pause on this one. We're going to schedule a part 2 of this session because we are already an hour into this. We got probably yet another hour of other stuff, and definitely want to make some of this stuff digestible for everybody. So stay tuned. Make sure you register for part 2. It'll come out in the next, I think we'll do it either next week or the week after. It will shift some of the stuff out, but we'll get this thing taken care of for you. But with that, I hope you've been finding value in this one. Definitely leave your comments, leave your questions on there. We are monitoring those things for questions and trying to answer them to the best of our ability. If there's any topics that you think we should be covering, let us know those as well. And until then, thank y'all so much. We do greatly appreciate it. We value you being here, and we'll see y'all next time. Take care.